Welcome to the Charlevoix Stories Project, a continuation of Charlevoix oral traditions. I'm Judith Ivan, Assistant Adult Services Librarian, and today is Tuesday, April 12, 2016. With me are Cynthia Postmus, Kay Heisey, Marilyn Novak, and Marianne Chu, volunteers who have been working for the library for many years. Their Michigan Room Committee has been involved in preserving the historical collections of the library as well as in the development of the library.
We are very fortunate to have all these drawers here. 4 of them make up our vertical files, and we have all kinds of information here on places such as Fisherman's Island, Beaver Island, Green Sky Hill, on people, Earl Young, Native Americans, and on the cement plant, Castle Farms, and ships and shipwrecks. All of these, if you are looking a book or a resource up, will tell if they're in the vertical file. We started these in the old library. There's some very, very valuable pamphlets in here that I don't know what we would do with if we didn't have a place to house them. All right, and you can tell this library is well planned because we have some very, very deep drawers here that house nautical charts of the Great Lakes. Probably can't see too much of this one on Michigan. These were given to us by the U.S. Coast Guard, and they're all labeled and all the way down in these deep drawers. Over here, one very interesting thing, we have a plat book of Charlevoix County, 1901, and you can find all kinds of interesting settlement patterns. You can see the rail lines and see who owned the property in various places. My favorite things in this Michigan room are the yearbooks. We have yearbooks starting with 1924, the old Chanticleer, with its 20 graduating seniors and about 60 pages in this little book. And then we have a gap until 1946, but we have all the yearbooks now from 1946 to the present, and they are all digitized too, but a wonderful source of genealogy material. Over here we have a big set of volumes, Michigan Pioneer and Historical Collections, very old, a lot of old history and information. And here we have 7 volumes of Bob Miles's photographs that were given to us, ones that were not used in his first book.
In 2009 was our centennial year of 100 years of library service in Charlevoix. And our committee did the historic photos that hang in the library upstairs as an exhibit. Some are here in the Michigan room, we have some in the boardroom, and some of the other rooms in the library. So everyone should take a look at those. We worked with David Miles and the Historical Society. We reviewed many photos and chose the photos that were at least 100 years old to have framed and hang here in the library. Another collection that we added to the library are the plates that are around the room. And Janine Wallace would do a historic plate for the Shop of the Gauls each year. Our library had a few of them and we wanted to complete the collection. And so we did research on what we were missing. We wrote a letter to the Library Link, our library newsletter, requesting gifts of plates if anyone had one that they would like to donate to the library. So that collection was also completed. We have an art book that we've worked on, which we're very proud of. This library is gifted with many wonderful pieces of art. And we were losing information about the art, and so the committee decided that they would go to work. We had Lyle Jeanette photograph all of the art in the library, and then we did a book with the information that was gained, the history of the piece, or whatever we could add. And for example, the first page here is the mural that is in the main part of the library, and the information of the artist and so on. So that was another project that was done. So people, if they see art around the library, outside or inside. They can come and they can check our art book, and they'll have the information.
Let's begin today by having you introduce yourselves and give a brief overview of your connection to the library.
My name is Cynthia Postmus. I grew up in Charlevoix and I went to school here.
I'm Kay Heisey. I retired here. What brought us to Charlevoix was the fact that my husband grew up here, as did my own father back in the early 1900s.
I'm Marilyn Novak, and I was born in Charlevoix, grew up here, left for many years, but always kept a connection in the summertime because there is no other place to spend a summer than in Charlevoix.
Absolutely.
I'm Mary Ann Chu, and I'm a native of Charlevoix, and I went to school in this building, at elementary school, and then I graduated in Charlevoix, and then I came back.
Cynthia, when was the Michigan Room Committee formed, and why did you decide that it needed to be formed?
That's a hard question because it just didn't just happen. In January 2001, I had been coming to the library over a period of time in the summers when I visited here, and I'd brought my children here. And so when my husband retired, I was someone that came to the library, and I belonged to the Friends and had volunteered on some projects that the Friends were involved in. So anyway, the director at the time the Courier had asked the director if there was someone, a patron, that might be interested in scanning through the library's microfilm and focusing on some interesting historical articles from the Courier and the Sentinel that they could run in the paper. So I said, fine, that sounded very interesting. And so probably because I spent so many hours in here with that project, I think the director thought I would want to do another job. So, yeah, she asked me if I would like to clean up and organize and evaluate the contents of the Michigan Room. I immediately knew I couldn't do this by myself. So I recruited Kay and Marilyn and Mary Ann to help me with this job. They were all former teachers, and I knew they'd be focused and really organized. So I should say what the Michigan Room was in the old library. It was, I don't know what it was initially, what it really looked like. But at the time, back in 2000 and 2001, it was a workroom. And it was, had a window that faced out into the library that was covered, by a curtain that was rather dingy. So, there wasn't really any reason for people to go in there. So, fast forward here, we're in the room and we're trying to clean up the clutter. And the room had lots of old newspaper clippings scattered around, and it was really in disarray. So the more we sorted, the more we realized that we didn't have the expertise to evaluate what was in the room. Some things maybe were throwaways, but we were in a bad situation.
The job sort of seemed overwhelming, I'm sure.
Well, it did, and none of us knew how to get on the internet to look at the rare book sites to evaluate whether we had some books, but they were very outdated that talked about valuable books, and so it didn't take us long to realize that we needed to ask someone to help us that knew more about collectible and rare books. So I should explain that the books in the room had a good number of the books had been given by Ernest Babst, who was a longtime,
That's an important detail.
resident of the Chicago Club here. And his family donated a collection of books to the Michigan Room, the library, and to the University of Michigan's Bentley Library. So that was part of the collection, and there were little stickers in the book saying that it had been given by the Ernest Babst. So, but there were other books in there as well, because over the years I think people had donated books or had given books in memory of someone of this sort. So, anyway, I did a little searching around and talked to a couple other libraries around here that had Michigan rooms and I knew had collections. Petoskey's one, Mackinac City, and a woman named Mary Carney had done some work for them. She lives in the Upper Peninsula, so I called her and I explained our situation, and she said, I said, well, we don't have any money.
Right.
She said, and she didn't know me, and she said, but you know, I'd like to help you because I love libraries. So Mary came, and the bottom line is we found out that there were many valuable and collectible books that particularly spoke to the history of the area. So our next priority was to secure the collection. So we applied. By the way, this is a picture of Mary Carney. And Mary Carney turned out to be a very valuable person in our work with the library. So we applied for a grant from the Charlevoix County Community Foundation. And what we asked for and the monies they gave us provided for. There were these cabinets were in the Michigan Room at the time, these shelves.
At the 109 Clinton
Yes.
Street.
And so what we did with the monies was to have a glass company here in Charlevoix come and put in some doors, glass doors with locks to secure the collection.
Remember how excited we were when we got the grant money? Oh. We never thought we would get a dime, and we
Right.
did.
And you know, the trustees were very supportive of this effort that we were.
The Library Board of Trustees.
Yes.
Okay.
So anyway, we secured the bookcases, and we had money. We requested money for a vertical file and archival materials. So that sort of got us moving, and the room began to take shape.
Okay.
So then we decided that we really wanted to show off this room. So we decided we would have a reception, and it's sort of an open house where people could come and you know, walk around the room. And so
I assume you took down the dirty curtains then.
Yes, we did. That was one of the first things we did. But this is a picture of our group with Bob Tambellini, who was the director of the foundation. And it was just a fun project, and a lot of people showed up, and the room looked entirely different with some wonderful chairs and some things that Kay donated, that lamps, and what else?
The file cabinet was in place. We had a footstool.
Oh yeah, it was grand. So
Trying to make it comfortable and inviting.
Exactly.
well,
That's the key phrase.
The problem then became that we always could think of another project, and so we decided that I might mention that at this reception we invited Mary Carney, the book expert, and she was sort of our program, and people in the community could bring a couple books that they had questions about, and so on. So that was a big hit.
All right. And sounds like it was a draw. It helped bring
Yes,
people in to
right.
view the room. That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I think Mary Kearney helped us realize we had all of these gorgeous books, but when we looked in the books, remember, we found the little notes.
Oh, I was going to talk about that. What I was going to say is I think our success in the Michigan Room with that project motivated us to come up with new challenges.
Great.
So while we were sorting through the many books in the collection, we frequently would find little notations tucked away in the pages. These little postings had been done by the librarian, Margaret Dewar, and who we learned had been an interim director at the time when the library moved from the old Carnegie building on the corner of Clinton and State down to the new location at the time.
That would have been in the 1960s,
Right.
correct?
Right.
Okay.
The 109.
Yeah, 109. So we begin to realize that she must have had a passion for that room and its collection and the history of the area. This is a picture of Margaret when she was, and I think this was the opening day of the 109 Clinton Street Library. Okay. And a librarian had been hired, but Margaret was the interim until that woman could arrive. What was her name?
Yes, it was Dorothy Olmsted.
All right, so we thought, our wheels got in motion again, and we thought it would be nice to establish an award in her name for someone that cared about the area and cared about the history. So we created the Margaret Dewar Award. Now, at the time, Margaret was still living, and this is a picture of our group with there's a son and a daughter, a daughter and a son-in-law in this picture.
Let me point out, is this Margaret?
This is Margaret, and and she was really pleased with this honor, and she was our first recipient. So that's a little about how we began to move forward.
Well, Marilyn, tell us a little bit more about that award, please. Who were the other honorees? If Margaret was the first honoree, who were the others? And I know you had speakers that you brought in on occasions to help commemorate each award each time. So give us some of that information, please.
Okay, well, we look to honor people who had helped preserve local history and or who had helped enrich the quality of life in our community. So our first three award honorees were local people. In 2004, Marilyn Boss, 2005, Clayton Smith, and 2006, Karen Lewis. And Marilyn Boss had a column called Days Gone By in the local newspaper. She was always identifying and preserving photos and knew who everybody was. She was 3 times president of the Charlevoix Historical Society and always did a lot of notebooks in which she put articles from the newspaper on local history. And we knew her as Mrs. Petunia. She got up at 4 in the morning and went watering flowers with her husband Dale for many years. And to speak, our speaker was also a local person, New York Times bestseller, class of 1958, Larry Smith. And known for Iwo Jima and Beyond Glory, and a wonderful, entertaining speaker whom we all knew.
What a great connection.
Great connection.
That he
and a
grew up
great
and
way
went to school
start.
here.
Yes.
Mary Ann's classmate.
Mary Ann's classmate. And in 2005, we have Clayton Smith. He also was local, grew up here, and became an author at age 75 and wrote 75 Years with a Country Boy, telling about his fishing and hunting, trapping stories, and he wanted to make sure his grandchildren would know of these experiences. And he also wrote some very early other Charlevoix memories.
Okay, I'd just
into
like
book
to,
form.
to point out too, we have an oral traditions interview with Marilyn and her husband Dale. We did in
Yes.
2007, and Clayton's books are here in Michigan.
in the Michigan room.
Great.
Yes, indeed. All right, and our speaker that year was our good friend Mary Carney. We have the book appraiser. We have borrowed her many times, and she has helped us out. And that particular night, she talked about how to recognize valuable books. That was her presentation. And we had brought books, the audience had been told to bring a book if they wanted it appraised, and she did an appraisal right on the site. So that was pretty cool. Our 2006 honoree was Karen Lewis, also local person, and she was curator at the Charlevoix Historical Society. She was the most talented organizer of exhibits and did many of their exhibits, preserving art and artifacts and co-authoring some of those local books on Charlevoix, the railroads, hotels, and that group. Now, this was 2006. This was our first program in the new library here. And we were just thrilled. We were going to the top to get a speaker this time. So our first speaker that came to mind was Laura Bush, who better known as a librarian in the United States as Laura.
You set your size high, didn't you? Good for you.
And we always do.
Yeah.
But we decided that was probably not going to work out, so we would look closer to home, and we wrote Jennifer Granholm, who had been governor for 2 terms in Michigan. But the problem was by then she had moved to California, and so she sent her regrets. But Cynthia had also been trying to keep track of another New York Times bestseller in the area in Traverse City, and we finally got Doug Stanton.
Okay.
Such a great speaker. The only problem was this was in the winter, and we had a terrible blizzard. The room was packed, and there were, and he was 30 minutes late.
Yeah,
But-
well, Northern Michigan, we come out, don't we? We're
Yes,
not.
we do.
We're not sissies about the weather.
So anyway, we were thrilled to have Doug. He spoke about In Harm's Way, and he had another book, Horse Soldiers, and has become very involved with the National Writers Series in the Traverse City area. So after that, in 2007, we honored some restorers, Linda and Richard Mueller, owners of Castle Farms, and they were responsible for the restoration of the old Globe Farm. Landmark tourist attraction, now a place where many weddings and also Charlevoix fundraisers actually for the community take place.
I believe they have a long-time summer connection
Yes,
to Charlevoix
yes, they
too,
do.
don't they? Yeah, through the Belvedere
Belvedere.
Club. Yeah.
And our speaker in 2007 was Bob Taggets. He is the Grand Hotel historian. Probably knows more about wood hotels in the United States than anybody else, but he certainly knew more about the Grand Hotel, how it was built, how they got the materials there, all the problems, who the movie stars were that came, just a really entertaining speaker. In 2008, beloved superintendent of Charlevoix Schools, Gordon Van Wieren. And he had been the founder of the Charlevoix Schools Foundation and on the original board of trustees, responsible for this library with all his leadership planning, and et cetera. And we found the perfect pair for our speaker. Alice Riemenschneider, who was the library's talented interior designer.
For the new
for
library
the
here, the
no
one we're in.
library here. And thanks to these gals at the table, they lobbied for her. They had met her, heard her speak on Mackinac Island, and were determined that she was going to be our interior designer. And I gotta say, she was just the master of preservation, trying to keep the unique qualities of this building. The two-story gym, she put in a mezzanine and the Juliet balcony. She took the balcony seats, theater seats out, and put them down here in the hallway. She took the Batchelder tiles and put them around our water fountain. So just an amazing job. I think we were so lucky, and it was fun for the audience to see the person who was so detailed oriented and
good
done
timing.
such a good job.
Yeah, that was good timing too, because people had had a chance to be here for a couple of years and to really appreciate her work.
Yes. And 2009, we looked at a donor, a philanthropist, who had been the founder of the Charlevoix County Community Foundation. This is John Fry, and a board member of the Fry Foundation, but just somebody with a passion for environmental preservation, for the arts and education in the area. And our speaker that year was Maureen Taylor. She was an internationally known photo detective and speaker. She conducted some workshops for us on genealogy, which was something the Michigan Room Committee has always been interested in, as has the library. And 2010 and 2011, we went back to local peoples. And here we have 2010, Esther and Tom Carey, lifelong volunteers in the community for every organization, hospital, the library, the Masons, the Eastern Star, their church. Just a wonderful group. And the particular evening we were honoring them, Tom had just gotten out of the hospital. So we were not sure if he was going to be well enough to come, but he made it. And after,
There's always something with well-made plans, isn't there? Always something.
and we don't always have contingent plans, and I don't think we have any in place yet after all this time. But anyway, Esther stood up after they were given the award and turned around, thanked everybody for coming, but also made a presentation of one of their favorite books back to the library, which was very sweet. And they were just flattered by our speaker that we had, just totally flattered. And it was Doug Stanton back here again. And he was really taken by the kind of the feelings of community support. The room was packed with their friends and the community people that they had worked with. So that was pretty neat. And 2011, back to the locals, this was just a very special time. We honored David Miles, class of 1958.
It's a good class.
Good class. Mary Ann here presented the award, also of the class of 58. And we had Larry Smith back, class of 58. So it was just a really neat feeling of three really terrific people, all from the same class, back together in this building.
Remind us what David's done.
Yes, I will. David, co-director of the Charlevoix Historical Society, co-author of quite a few local histories, and David is a big presenter of programs here in the library now and also at the depot.
Yeah, I can tell you those programs that he conducts on Charlevoix history here, 150 people max, people get turned away.
Yeah.
They're very popular.
And some of them have been presented both here and at the depot.
Yeah.
And still get
And
that
still
draw.
get that draw.
Yes. Okay. In 2012, this was presented to donors, Lynn and Mason Rosenthal. just generous supporters of the community, but especially of the library. And what they donated was money for programming, which allowed the library to bring in some pretty significant speakers. That wouldn't have happened without them. Also, donated money for the Butterfly Garden, one of our many gardens that we have here. And in 2012, we had Kate Pugh Walters, a disability advocate and trustee of Grand Valley State, and a gal who kind of lent her expertise to many organizations. And the last two I'm going to mention, 2014 was the Belvedere Club, and 2015 the Chicago Club. Both clubs very supportive of the library. We have the Belvedere Room with the periodicals and newspapers. We have the Pew Ives Adult Reading Room, where the Chicago Club made a significant donation. These two clubs, though, have done so much to help Charlevoix, supported so many organizations that we thought it was really time to honor them, particularly providing jobs for our students and then scholarships for college. And in the case of the Chicago Club, quietly supporting young people who need medical and dental assistance, and also giving scholarships for Camp Mount McSabe. Our speaker in 2014 with the Belvedere Club was Bob Taggets again, our Grand Hotel historian. And then 2015, Chip Hansen, who's the president of the Charlevoix County Community Foundation. And this year, 2016, we are honoring the Charlevoix Council for the Arts, the Charlevoix Waterfront Art Fair, on September 20th. And Mary Beth McGraw, retired art teacher, will be the speaker.
Well, it's a wonderful thing that you've done. You created this, the Margaret Dorr Award, because I think it's brought to all of our attention the people who really give so much to the community.
Right, and it's nice to be able to honor them.
Yeah.
And we've had some wonderful speakers as well.
Absolutely.
You know, Marilyn, when we did the first two programs, it was in the old
The library, yes.
And
the
I
basement.
think it helped people that came to the program, I think it helped them to realize that, you know, we need a place
To do these kinds of things.
Yes. And because we had people sitting on kindergarten chairs, adults, and or standing.
Right.
And I think this really
we had
focused
no
on-
elevator
Yeah.
to help people
help
descend down there into the basement. So.
Well, Kay, what were some of the other programs that were sponsored by the Michigan Room Committee when the library was at 109?
Well, I'm exhausted already. I can't even imagine we did all of that. But honestly, when it started, we laugh about it now, but the idea in 1999, when the Friends was reorganized and we all got together, and was to bring people back to the library. It hadn't been well used, and the only place you really could bring a gathering of people was to the famous basement. And we used to sweep the floor, make the coffee, make the cookies, get the speaker, organize the chairs, drive the speaker, put the chairs away, mop the floor afterwards.
Keep the speaker at
Clean
your
up.
home?
Even that.
Yeah.
So it was interesting at the beginning. But our idea was we need to have people come to the library and we want to give them lots of different sorts of experiences. One of the huge requests was for genealogy information. And so one of the very first things we did was have programs in that regard. And this one was a little card that we sent around. We had a genealogy computer workshop where an expert came and showed people how they could look things up and find out information about their family. Hugely, hugely popular, still today. Hugely popular.
How many computers did we have?
We had 2 computers.
You got started. This was in 2001 or
This
2000?
was in 2001.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Then we said, well, we need to get the word out about this wonderful place that people can come. Let's get in the parade. So we went to every parade in town, we marched. We had the Memorial Day parade, and we certainly also marched in the Venetian parade. And not just the Michigan Room Committee, but all the Friends of the Library, and eventually the staff joined in, and now with the banner saying Charlevoix Public Library, we are considered to be an integral part of Charlevoix parades.
Right.
We had a children's art show for several years where children came and the art was placed in the basement on some stands, and the kids just loved it. Came and got little ribbons, and their parents all came, and if anybody else was in the library, they came down and took a look at it. We sponsored candidate forums. One of my favorite stories was convincing the 2 people running for mayor that the other one had agreed to come before I called the second one to say that the first one had agreed to come, and they came. But candidate forums had not been taking place for quite a long time. I think there had been a period of time where the League of Women Voters had a presence in town, but that hadn't been true for a while. So we started having candidate forums in the basement. And there is one of our events. This was for County Commissioner John, just before we moved to this building, 2006. John Haggard, Connie Saltonstall, and Ellis Bowl were running for County Commissioner. We'd heard about programs where kids could read to a dog. And we thought, well, isn't that a good idea? So we had...
Being former teachers.
And we know that some kids are reluctant to read to others, and they're nervous. But you don't have to be nervous in front of a dog.
That's right.
And so we had a couple of companion dogs who came to the library, and it was set up on Saturday mornings, and hugely popular. And it was great fun to peek in and see those children in the basement reading to a dog. Well, of course, you also might read to a friend, and so we set up an outreach program. This shows Sharon Knutson, who is delivering books to a lady who's now deceased, Edith LeClaire. But she loved to read, but she couldn't get to the library. So we started a program where we had some volunteers who met those who wanted books and carried books to them, went back and picked them up, and of course it developed friendships between these people as well, which was very nice. And then we wanted to have some lectures. So we offered several. A couple were about Harold Cohn, a local minister, now deceased, and an author. His daughter came and spoke about his life. And we also had a member of the, I wanted to say Chicago Club, but it's Belvedere Club, a member of the Belvedere Club, Carl Shoemaker, who was a hostage on the USS Pueblo. And he had written a book about it, he came and spoke about it, and as Cynthia said earlier, people were standing pressed up against the walls to listen to him speak. We also had luncheons. We had a visit from the State Director of History, Arts, and Libraries. Doesn't exist anymore, but his name was Bill Anderson, and he was the head of that. He brought with him the state librarian, Christy Pearson. This was in 2003, and Cynthia hosted a luncheon at her house, and they toured Charlevoix and had a wonderful lunch.
That was funny, Kay, because we were afraid we were going to run out of salads. week. And so we started
portioning out.
Just a little smaller.
Yes.
Well, because you had better turnout than you had.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we had a great big luncheon. This was a fundraiser for the new library. And Edith Gilbert, who was well known in Charlevoix, wrote a column for the Charlevoix Courier, and loved the idea of making this building the new library.
Yes, she did.
Was our guest speaker and our honoree, and we charged money to come to the castle. And the castle was very nice to donate the facility, and it was just a great afternoon. We also had exhibits, lots of them. Our favorite was the Jim Annis exhibit. This is our brochure. He was a local artist. Late in his life, he started painting, but he really was good at everything. He was a scratch golfer. He could repair and make cabinets and furniture. A very interesting man, and as I said, late in his life he picked up a brush and some paint, and just, we think, was fantastic, and we knew that he would have lots and lots of originals that we could show at the library. He thought no one would come, but he was stunned when, again, it was packed with people who came to the exhibit over a weekend, and I believe one of his paintings is here in the library. So.
A couple times a year I get questions at the reference desk about people wanting to know where they can buy his work. And so I usually refer them to Craigslist or eBay, and they actually, you can find some of his items there.
Okay, there's one hanging in the room here.
Well, there was great. Ah, there it is. Right behind us.
Katie, are you going to mention how we met on those Mondays at his home?
I wasn't going to, but go ahead.
Marilyn had a little laptop, and of course, it took us, I don't know how many weeks to catalog the materials, the art. And so Marilyn.
I'm thinking there were at least 100 pieces of original art, some hanging, some leaning, in 8 or 10 different rooms in his house. We had to catalog them, figure out a subject, put down a room they were in.
Under a bed, I mean.
You know, and figure out how to move these to the library. We did this little art show. I think we exhibited for about maybe 2.5 days, and we had like a day and a half to get them down here, get them hung. There was nothing to hang things on, find ways to do all that.
We had the famous blue curtain that Mary Ann
put up
to cover this whole area of just ugly shelves.
Right, yeah. So you put paintings in front of it.
And Mary Beth McGraw happened to come in, and my goodness, she was helpful in setting up some of the displays.
Okay.
It was really.
Well, I just think that all of the things that you did at that library now are part of the library today. They're part of the staff, the programming, everything that gets done. So all those things you did as volunteers have now been incorporated into the professional aspect of the library, and that's tremendous. It's a tremendous gift that an example that you gave us, and a model that has been followed.
Well, there just weren't any programs either at that time until we came along and had the time to organize.
Well, I think that gives us a good segue to move into, Mary Ann, why was the committee so passionate about having a new building? I mean, we've touched on it, Edith was involved in it. Go into the details now about how you brought it about so that we were able to get this facility.
Well, I think you can see from listening to my 3 friends here how passionate they are about the library. And so we all love libraries, and it was a pretty natural thing for us to become involved and to continue working. 2 of us were on the board of trustees, And the board realized that we were desperate for space, and the community and the trustees wanted to have a library downtown. We wanted people to be able to walk to the library, it to be a center of the community, and so that's what we were working on. We were searching for property for about a year and trying to figure out how we could put a library downtown with the property being very expensive, really no large lots that were downtown. And so finally it was determined that the only property available was going to be this old school. The community really supported renovating this 1927 building that was built by Warren Holmes, the architect at the time, who, by the way, was an architect who was considered a Cadillac architect of elementary schools or schools, public schools. And his schools were famous for having wonderful detail, like the fireplace in the Belvedere room, the wonderful tiles, all kinds of special
the tiles
things.
on the outside.
Yes, and even like in the kindergarten room, bathroom features were little tiny toilets, sinks that were low, a playhouse, all kinds of wonderful things to make it a special building. So anyway, the town also then wanted to preserve this building, which helped us out. The Michigan Room Committee got on board, and we decided to support the Board of Trustees. And we needed really to sell the idea to the community that we needed a new library, that 109 Clinton was outgrown, it was not wired correctly for technology, for the future at all. It was so crowded. In fact, the computers were right in the center of where people were trying to read or do research, doing quiet type of work. So we did this PowerPoint program that we put together, and every Wednesday in the basement of the library at 109 Clinton, we did our PowerPoint program, and we had a different audience each week. The four of us baked muffins and cookies. We had coffee and tea. Kay made little tablecloths for all the little round tables that we had set up. We always felt that if someone ate with us, they would support us.
There you go.
So,
I know Kay said she was the muffin queen.
by the time that ended, we could have won awards for our baking.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were showing our PowerPoint program, and that had some tentative plans for the new building. And we would make phone calls all week long. We went through the phone book to invite people so that we would have a new audience each week. And after the PowerPoint program, we would ask if there were any questions. If any questions came up that we couldn't answer, we would take the person's name and address, phone number, and we would get back to every single person that asked a question that we didn't know how to answer it in our presentation. We also went to the Chamber of Commerce, and at that time they had a list of all of the organizations with the names of the presidents, the phone numbers, etc. And we contacted all of those organizations and said, we have a program that we would be willing to do for your organization if you would invite us to come. And so we were going to all of these different organizations at night, in the daytime, doing our programs. And it was kind of interesting. We did it so many times that some people got more than a double dose. Dr. Sturrock, the superintendent of schools, had commented to us that he had heard it at Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions, and then again when we did it for the staff.
Well, he was unusual because not very many people are parts of all of those.
It was, yes, so.
He was unusual.
And I know one fun meeting that we went to, Kay and I did the Rod and Gun Club. And so, you know, when we called, they were kind of, they weren't sure that they wanted to have a program on, you know, a new library. Kay is very persuasive, of course, as you have heard. And so we did our presentation, and then when our PowerPoint program was over, Kay had lugged this huge box of books, and she started hauling out the books one by one. This is on fishing, this is on hunting, this is on camping. So you see, we have something for everyone at our library, so we welcome you. And of course, at that time, they were trying to buy this huge bear for the Rod and Gun Club, and so the hat was passed, and we could put our money in. And then I said to them, you know, the bear would be wonderful also to loan to the library in our children's department. So we still haven't seen that bear, but it may come. And one of the things I would like to point out is in our Michigan room and also in the regular stacks, we have the complete book then of the process of building or the renovation of this building. And it opened in 2006. And it's just, it's a wonderful book that I think that anyone who wasn't here and walking through the building on the tours, the hard hat tours that we had, this is the Board of Trustees. And then, of course, it goes on the different libraries that we have been through. And it just has pictures of all the people involved, the process in each room. You'll see caterpillars going through the building and all kinds of construction going on. But anyway.
Do you think that because the building was such a part of the community for a long time, that that's one of the reasons people wanted to see it preserved and were happy to have the idea of the library?
Definitely. It was definitely because there were so many happy memories in this building that the community saw this 1927 building as a special, almost like a monument in Charlevoix. And so many of our older buildings had been torn down. And so there was really a feeling of wanting to preserve this building, which I think helped the situation.
To this day, you know, it happens at least 3 times a month. You know, I went to school here. The people come through, and it's such a draw. They want to come back just to see that, and it really. So I know that there were at the time there were other processes for building the building, other thoughts. Let's turn it into a senior apartment center, those kinds of things. You know, lots of other ideas for preserving the building, but the fact that you all came up with this to make it a library, I think, was brilliant. And
well, there was an offer on the table for the property with money down, and if we did not sell the property and raise the millage, you know, we would not have this library. Right. You know, the 6 months of convincing the community that we did need a new library. We had one chance at passing the millage, and we had a millage committee with Tony Felder that worked on that in conjunction with this building. It was interesting when the board had this building, the empty building, evaluated to see if it was possible to renovate it, if it would be worth the money. And actually, they said it was good for another 50, 75 years. It was built so well. But the additions that had been put on in, was it the 50s? Those needed to go because they were so poor. Yeah. And so the old part of the building was what was structurally sound. And so when the building was tuck pointed on the outside, it looked like brand new. And then, of course, the inside was totally demolished and gutted. And then, what was it? There's 16 different levels in this library when we were walking through that had to be changed because we wanted it all on one level so that it would be handicapped accessible.
Yeah, well, it certainly was. I think your description of how you went about to persuade people, because getting a millage passed in a small community is always a challenge, always. And the fact that it happened on the first time, I think, is due to all of those muffins that you made and all of those PowerPoints that you went to all of the various places, because it made, you know, the Rod and Gun Club folks, it made everybody realize, oh, okay, there's something of value here for all of us.
It's interesting because I think there were people that thought, you know, why do we need a community room? Mm-hmm. And, you know, now you can. It's just a great feeling to know how booked that facility, that part of the this library is.
Yes, it's in
It's-
constant use all
it
of the
is.
time. Yeah, I think people realized they didn't know what they were missing.
Right.
And now everybody is very happy to have it. I think we have to close. We've allotted ourselves an hour here, and there's a lot more to say. So let's try to do this. Why don't we take another 10, 15 minutes to try to think of, there were a few other things that you wanted to tell us about to make sure that we get in this interview. I know, Kay, we were talking about you're part of the obituaries and doing the Michigan Room collection. We have newspapers here on microfilm and the obituary database, so why don't we touch on that?
All right. I'll tell you that this urge for family history that everybody has and the need to access that brought us to the Obituary Project. We started in the basement of the old building and found 100 years of newspapers. They were in complete and total disarray. At this point, they're a little bit better organized, but we originally found them as, June of 1927 next to April of 1992. It took us a year to get them organized. Eventually, we bought shelves and we had them organized by year. And after that, we got some money from the Friends of the Library and bought archival boxes. And now we have over 60. I will grab the top, 60 archival boxes holding all of the newspapers, and they are these newspapers of 100 years ago are all saved. And from the newspapers, we actually create a searchable database so that we can offer to patrons of the library the opportunity to find out who may have lived and died in this little town. So at this point, we have finished through 1908.
Wonderful.
Our group of about 20 volunteers through the years. We started in 2003. We have had the staff help us by doing all the current obituaries. So someone from the staff works on that, so we're right up to date. We have done at this point 107 years, and we have entered over 17,000 obituaries.
Wow, those are impressive
All
statistics.
accessible on the Charlevoix Library website.
And in addition, we'll say we have a microfilm machine here in the Michigan Room, and if people want to do more than simply look for the obit, you can come and look at the papers themselves.